I will tell you at once, not because I desire your belief, but because the secret owes you nothing except the truth. The reverse law is not a law of addition, it is a law of graceful subtraction. More ancient than the first recorded prayer, older than the earliest temple hymn, it was whispered into the ears of priest astronomers who mapped the heavens and the hollows of each human chest. They carved it into stone, not as instruction but as a warning. Bring nothing, the inscription seems to say. Let the world bring itself. If this sounds dainty or easy, you have already missed its weight. The reverse law overturns everything you learned about effort. Where modern culture says push harder, the reverse law instructs the body-mind to loosen to become a tuned receiver rather than a hammer. Think of a violin string. The musician does not thrust energy through it. The player finds the precise tension that allows the bow's silk to coax harmonics out of silence. It is the same with the field of being. This is not passive surrender. It is a calibrated attunement. Legend places its origin in the twilight libraries of Heliopolis, where scribes, who engineered rituals of the heart, recorded a curious experiment. A young acolyte, tired of failing at every petition offered to the gods, was told to stop trying. For 7 days he performed no petitions, no offerings. He simply aligned his breath with dawn and dusk, and sang single notes that matched the hum of the temple stones. On the 8th day, what he had been striving for, a reconciled family, a return of livelihood, arrived as though the world owed him a debt. The priests called it a fluke, the acolyte called it the opening. From a scientific perspective, this reads like a rediscovery of resonance and probability. Modern neurobiology shows that the brain is not merely a decision engine, but a filter. When we tighten around a desire, we narrow the bandwidth of perception and habit to those exact forms we expect. The reverse law teaches that some outcomes require an expansive field, an openness of neural attention and autonomic tone, so that subtle informational patterns can restructure what appears as reality. In physics terms, lower amplitude, tuned frequency, higher coherence. But here is the danger. The reverse law is seductive. People mistake it for will it to happen by wishing less, and they slide into passive resignation. That is the first mental trap. The true practice requires specificity of inner posture, a readiness to remove the friction of fear, to release the habit of forcing. It asks for deliberate undoing. Imagine someone trying to open a heavy door by pulling and shoving at once. The door jams. Let go of the shove. Pull with soft, steady pressure. That is the paradox. You do something, but it is a pared down, crystalline action that invites a wider response. Now for the first practical moment. Close your eyes. Breathe 3 times, slowly, in through the nostrils, out through the mouth. Allow the shoulders to melt. Visualize a small knot in the belly, that tightness that springs up whenever you try too hard. With your next exhale, say silently, I release. Sing a single vowel, sound a long, even ah for 8 seconds. Not loud, not throaty, but like a tuning fork settling into its tone. Hold the silence that follows for 12 breaths. You have just performed the simplest, most dangerous initiation of the reverse law. You shifted from pressing to permitting. This shift, once felt, rearranges the inner geometry of expectation. You will notice immediate effects, small, unremarked. Your thoughts unclench. Your heartbeat finds a softer cadence. A memory that once hurt a little less now nods like an old friend. These are the seedlings, but do not confuse them for the harvest. The danger comes when impatience demands visible proof. The old priests would say, this will flower when the conditions of the field are met. That could be hours, days, or a season. Yet, and this is crucial, many reported transformational inflection points after only one exact execution of the reverse law. That is why the caveats, prerequisites of mental hygiene, no active attempts to manipulate, a healthy nervous system, no extreme withdrawal from medical care, and humility before the process. Side effects are not miraculous, only in the positive sense. Expect confusion. Things you thought you wanted may recede, revealing deeper wants. Expect social friction. Those who rely on your striving may try to pull you back. Expect anxiety, disguised as boredom, the mind's old tactic to resume control. These are not signs of failure, They are the field adjusting. If you feel disoriented for more than a few days, reintroduce structure, short walks, clear meals, simple tasks. The reverse law is not an excuse for chaos. This introduction is both an invitation and a stern note. The reverse law will read you like a tuning fork. If you are greedy for immediate gain, it will tighten the mirror of your wanting and return less. If you are patient and precise, it will widen your capacity to receive. The important posture is ritualized non-interference. You do the inner work, then step back like a gardener who waters and waits, not a child who stomps the soil. There is a story told in two tongues, Egyptian and Sanskrit, about a priest who turned the sun inward and found a kingdom there. In one version, the priest sits at dawn in front of a polished bronze bowl and sings the name of Ra, not to the sky but to the reflection, until the face in the bowl brightens and the shadows in the heart contract. In the other, an Indian yogi traces the sun's path across his palms, pressing breath like a seal into the chest until a small ember becomes a steady flame. Both stories point to the same impossible practice, reversing the most outward force we know into a subtle inner furnace. This is not metaphor alone. Imagine the sun as a vector always pointing, radiating, doing. Ra Reversed teaches the practitioner to invert the vector. The active outward intention becomes a receptive inner field that reorganizes the body's electromagnetic lattice. If the reverse law is the principle of letting go, Ra Reversed is the method of transmuting outgoing heat into inner coherence. The effect is alchemical. Fears that once felt like frost melt into a gentle liquidity of choice. My first experience with this practice was not picturesque. I was in a low stone room where the light entered like a narrow blade. The elder instructing me said, "We will not call the sun today, we will be its mirror." He taught me to place the palms over the chest, to feel the heartbeat as an anvil, and then to chant a single solar vowel, O, in cycles timed to the breath. The sensation was not immediate brilliance, but a slow, thickening warmth around the sternum. Afterward, small things shifted. Decisions that previously required frantic lists came with clarity. Old irritations seemed to soften at their roots. The change felt less like acquisition and more like reclamation. Let us speak plainly about science, because the ancients used language of myth to encode biomechanics. Modern physiology recognizes the heart as more than a pump. It is a complex electromagnetic organ whose field interacts with the brain and the gut. HRV, heart rate variability. Research shows that patterned breathing and resonant vocalization alter vagal tone and shift autonomic balance toward parasympathetic coherence. Ra Reversed trains the heart into a coherent emitter that acts like a transducer. Inward solar focus reorganizes hormonal cascades, calms the limbic charge, and realigns attention networks. It is not magic without mechanism. It is ancient ritual performing the same recalibration that contemporary biofeedback seeks. Now the practice. Sit upright but relaxed. Place both palms gently over the sternum, fingers meeting like a loose book. Inhale for a count of 4, hold for 2, exhale for 6. Do this 3 cycles to settle. Then, with eyes half softened, vocalize the syllable O, rounded, resonant on the exhale. Make each O last about 6 seconds. Do 7 repetitions. After the 7th, keep the lips closed and imagine the sunlight, not as beams, but as a color-saturated warmth folding into the heart space. Breathe 12 calm breaths while keeping attention on the sternum. Do not intend outcomes, intend warmth and clarity. That is the specific posture, a solar inwardness, not a demand. Warnings come quickly here. The first mental trap is heroism. People imagine they will become unstoppable engines of productivity. Ra Reversed will instead highlight where your heat was wasted. You may feel, for a brief time, a rush of unspent energy that manifests as impatience or irritability. Do not act on it. The second trap is spiritual grandstanding, using this practice to override necessary life processes. If you have a history of manic episodes, severe cardiac conditions, or are on medication that affects autonomic tone, consult a physician before sustained practice. The technique influences heart rate, breath, and nervous tone. These are powerful levers. Side effects are subtle and often benevolent. Clearer priorities, a softening of social reactivity, dreams that deliver messages in symbols rather than soap opera narratives. Some report a temporary dimming of appetite for superficial pleasures. Others notice relationships reorganizing, not necessarily disappearing, but aligning with the new internal axis. You may be tempted to repeat the ritual hourly. Resist. The sun does not bang on the horizon every minute. Give the inner furnace time to consolidate. There is a cultural mirror worth noticing. In Tibet, certain inward light practices asked students to visualize inner sun centers in the body and to circulate warmth through the channels. The aim was inner illumination rather than outer renown. In India, the Surya Namaskar sequences dedicate movement to the sun, but also teach pranayama that collects sunlight inside the breath. In Egypt, Ra was worshipped as giver of life and as a principle of order Ma'at, which is preserved by measured reverence. Ra reversed borrows from each. The movement of breath and the discipline of ritual with a subversive twist turn the light inward and watch how your world rearranges. A practical note on timing. Perform this practice at dawn or within an hour of waking if possible. The nervous system is more plastic then. The body's circadian chemistry is receptive, but do not fret. Practicing at sunset yields its own variation, a cooling inwardizing of solar charge that prepares you for nocturnal integration. The key is intention. We are not summoning external favors. We are coaxing an inner metamorphosis. The personal account that convinced me of Ra Reversed's potency involved a woman in a coastal village who had tried every outward method to salvage a lost partnership and failing business. She did the inward solar practice exactly once, during a long, sleep-deprived morning. Within a week, an old partner texted with an offer that resolved the business debts. Within a month, the partnership dissolved cleanly in a way that preserved dignity. She swore it was not coincidence. She said the practice had changed. The angle of approach made her a receiver rather than a battering ram. Stories like that are not proof, but they are instructive. They remind us the method acts on the field around us, not only on our will. Finally, carry this phrase into the silence after practice. I am warmed, not forced. Keep it as a talisman against the mind's desire to push. If you would try this now, breathe. Place the palms. Sing the rounded Oa 7 times. Be deliberate. Then step away. Wait. Notice the small recalibrations of attention. This is how Ra Reversed begins to show its teeth and its blessings. There are practices that strike, and there are practices that echo. The mirror tone belongs to the second family. If Ra Reversed was the sun turned inward, the mirror tone is the quiet bell beneath the sun, an audible mirror that makes the hidden architecture of your being visible through vibration. Picture a still pool at night. Throw nothing into it. Instead, press a finger softly against the water and feel the concentric rings you did not know were waiting. That is the mirror tone. A small, precise, sonic pressure that exposes the arrangements of tension and desire so they may be smoothed. In temple law, it was taught to aspirants who could not, by petition or sacrifice, move a stubborn obstacle. The elders would place a silver bowl at the center of the chamber and instruct the student to hum until the bowl took the tone of the throat. The bowl would resonate, the room would learn the new pitch, and the stubbornness, whether grief, debt, or a blocked relationship, would begin to loosen its edges. Why does this work? The ancients had language, like calls to like. Modern science calls it entrainment. When two oscillators match frequency, energy transfers efficiently. Your voice is an oscillator, so is the collective field around you. The mirror tone is a micro-adjustment intended to bring your micro-oscillation into harmony with a larger possibility. I remember my first attempt like a soft, impossible miracle. It was late, and the village dogs had folded themselves into the shadows. The teacher told me to place my tongue against the ridge behind the teeth, close the lips, and hum, as if trying to make the bones of the skull sing. For the first few hums, nothing happened. Then, as if a seam had been loosened, a small sound rolled from the chest, and, in that exact second, a thought I had been wrestling with, a crossroads I had overcomplicated, unclenched, not solved by logic, rearranged, so the next step was obvious. A scientific angle helps the skeptic. Our auditory system loops into limbic structures and the vagus nerve. Vocalizing with sustained tone affects heart rate variability and breathing patterns, and through that pathway can alter mood states and attention. Furthermore, the practice leverages psychoacoustic phenomena, overtones and harmonics that carry more than pitch. They carry effective charge. The mirror tone is designed not to be dramatic, but to nudge the emotional crust until the inner clay becomes workable. Now the practice, precise and small. Sit upright with a neutral jaw. Place the tip of your tongue lightly on the alveolar ridge, the gumlin just behind the front teeth, and close your lips. Take a slow inhale, 4 seconds, then on a long, steady exhale, produce a closed-mouth hum. Focus the vibration forward. Feel it in the upper palate and skull, rather than the throat. Sustain each hum for 8 to 12 seconds, long enough to feel the vibration move from chest to skull and then to subside. Repeat this 5 times with full attention. After the 5th hum, transition to a slight nasal NG, as in the end of sing. For 3 extended breaths, this shifts resonance slightly deeper. Finish by sitting in silence for 8 breaths, allowing the aftertone to settle. A few technical notes. Keep the volume moderate. The effect is not from loudness, but from purity of sustained tone. If you have tinnitus, perforated eardrum, or severe vocal strain, consult a clinician before prolonged practice. Avoid pushing the voice into pain. The mirror tone is subtle force, ruins it. Picture the hum as a skilled locksmith working a delicate lock. Steady, patient, attentive. Beware the mental traps. First, do not turn this into performance. The mind will quickly want to show results and will invent elaborate stories of, "I felt the sign." That invention may gratify ego, but runs you away from the real feedback. Subtle shifts in attention, small changes in appetite for drama, the unsticking of one small habitual reaction. Second, beware addiction to the tone as escape. The mirror tone can soothe. Used to bypass responsibility, it becomes anesthetic. The elders warned, a healing sound that becomes a habit of avoidance will hollow you out. Use it to reveal, not to hide. Side effects are often tender and curious. Some people report vivid dreams the night after. Others feel brief waves of melancholy as shadow material rises and wants acknowledgement. These are not failures. They are signs the mirror tone is touching lodged material. If overwhelm surfaces, shorten the practice and include grounding actions. Walk barefoot, drink water, do simple physical work. The aim is integration, not unraveling. Cross-cultural echoes are unmistakable. In Tibetan chanting practices, low sustained vowels circulate energy through the subtle channels. In Vedic recitation, sacred syllables were held to carry pranic charge. The Egyptian temple singers used vowelizations to align priests' voices with architectural acoustics. All these traditions safeguard the same principle. Sound is not merely communicative, it is formative. If you are willing to experiment, try a single session now. Hum 5 long m, transition to 3 ng breaths, sit in silence for 8 breaths. Afterwards, notice one small difference: the way your shoulders rest, the texture of a habitual thought, the ease of a movement you usually do with strain. That small difference is the mirror tone's currency. Before I close this section, when you feel a real change, write it below. A simple confirmation, "I have activated the mirror tone," or "the journey has begun," plants your experience into a communal field and helps sustain the practice for others. Say it not for praise, but to add your note to the chorus. There is a sly, almost insolent wisdom hidden in the unasking. Sometimes the most potent magic is not in what you demand, but in what you stop demanding. Imagine a child who keeps asking for a toy until the parent, tired, only gives it when the child forgets to ask. The ancient adepts knew this and encoded a practice around it, not to manipulate others, but to recalibrate the nervous insistence that knots the field. The unasking is not resignation, it is surgical withdrawal. It is saying, "I will stop throwing questions into the well and wait to hear what the well returns when quiet." In some accounts, the unasking is taught with mockery. The old masters would make a show of refusing to teach the eager student a formula not to punish, but to reveal that hunger itself was the barrier. "Tell me what to do," the student would cry, and the master would reply, "Stop wanting the telling, and the telling will begin." This is intentionally provocative, because the unasking dissolves the performative hustle of modern striving. Where culture equates visibility with progress, the unasking cultivates depth beneath surface motion. Psychologically, the unasking leans on a well-established principle: paradoxical intention. Viktor Frankl described how attempting to avoid a symptom, like insomnia, often perpetuates it. Counterintuitively, relinquishing the struggle can free the organism. The unasking amplifies this insight by turning it into a ritualized posture. It asks the practitioner to do one precise thing: withdraw the mental pressure that seeks to force outcomes, while maintaining a vigilant, inviting openness. This creates a receptive field that is wide and, importantly, free from the static of anxious wanting. The practice is deceptively simple and must be performed with exactitude. Begin by identifying a single, presently pressing question in your life, not a philosophical abstraction, but a concrete knot. A phone call you await, a decision about a relationship, a creative block. Name it silently, no more than a clause. Will X return? Which job? Or should I move? Then perform the unasking ritual. 1. Sit comfortably and place one hand on the belly, one on the heart, to anchor body and emotion. 2. Breathe in for 4 counts, hold for 2, exhale for 6. Do this 3 times to stabilize. 3. On the next inhalation, whisper the question once, very quietly, as if into a pillow. Do not repeat it, let it hang like a dropped note. 4. Exhale and imagine placing the question into a basket woven of light and setting it at the foot of a silent door. Close the door in imagination, do not look back. 5. Continue breathing quietly for 12 breaths, while repeating this phrase silently with each exhale. I unask, I open. The phrase is not a spell of giving up, it is a shift of posture. 6. After the 12th breath, sit in silence for 5 minutes. If thoughts intrude, kindly place them aside like stray animals and return to the sensation of the closed door. This is the unasking. Its power is in the strictness of release. A single mention, then full letting go. If you repeat the whisper, you are not unasking, you are re-asking with softer hands, and the effect is lost. The practice trains the part of the mind that habitually clutches questions and insists on timing. Now, the dangers and the traps. The most common pitfall is impatience, disguised as faith. Practitioners will dutifully perform the unasking once, then spend the rest of the day scrutinizing the world for signs, which is paradoxically the very same muscle of anxious wanting. The unasking requires true forgetting, not vigilant watching. A second trap is moralization, turning the practice into a test of worthiness. If nothing appears after days, it does not mean you are defective. It means the field's timing is operating on rhythms you do not control. The elders cautioned, do the work, do not do the verdict. Side effects can be subtle and unsettling. The first few days after a proper unasking, you might feel an odd lightness that your social entourage mistakes for flakiness. Others may project urgency onto you. They are used to your striving and feel unmoored when you stop. This is a sign rather than a problem. You are changing field dynamics. There can also be unexpected inner material. The unasked question may reveal a deeper longing or a hidden fear. If sorrow rises, receive it with gentle witness, rather than reanimating the old petitioning posture. Ground with small acts, water, movement, simple conversation. Cross-culturally, the unasking has siblings. In Zen, the practice of shikantaza, just sitting, withdraws intentional grasping to allow insight. In Sufi traditions, the notion of fana, the annihilation of egoic desire, creates space for divine remembrance. Indigenous practices around the world include periods of fast and silence, specifically to stop habitual asking and attune to messages carried by dreams and nature. The unasking is not a novelty, it is a refinement of a perennial method. Practical integration. Use the unasking as a 24-hour experiment. Choose one small question to unask in the morning, perform the ritual, and commit to genuine forgetting for a day. Notice not what arrives, but what changes in your engagement with ordinary life, the quality of conversations, your reactivity, the tone of your sleep. Report back to yourself honestly. If something surfaces in the days that follow, mark it without claiming causation. The unasking is a practice of humility. It trains you to cooperate with timing larger than your timetable. Finally, ritual etiquette. The adepts always marked the unasking with an offering not to buy results, but to align action with intent. After you perform the unasking, do one small concrete act. Sweep a corner, make a cup of tea for someone, write a short note, and toss it into a drawer. These actions anchor the letting go in the body. They are the practical corollary to the inner unasking. When you do this correctly, something shifts. The world does not necessarily become immediately easier, but you inhabit your questions differently, less as wounds and more as stones in a stream that find their level. If you feel moved, write in the comments the confirmation, "I have activated the unasking," or "The journey has begun." Your note is more than a message, it is a shared vibration that helps stabilize the community field. There is a kind of silence that is mere absence, the quiet between traffic lights, and there is a silence that is dense, like cooled glass, which holds an entire ceremony within it. The ancients did not worship quiet as negation. They cultivated a void that functioned like a magnetic core. In some Egyptian rites, the priests would hush the chamber until breath itself sounded offensive, then teach the initiate to place a single thought into that hush and let the world answer. The sacred void is not avoidance, it is an active field-making. Think of it as a bowl you polish until its stillness begins to reflect, not just light, but potential. My memory of a first encounter with the sacred void is not cinematic, it is intimate and almost comic. A young student, frantic with plans, arrived at dawn carrying a list that he read like scripture. The elder sat him down, offered no counsel, and closed the shutters. For an hour they sat in a silence so intense, the student's thoughts felt like insects skittering on a bell. At some point, the student felt as if a small space had opened inside his chest. Clarity did not arrive as instruction, but as a new appetite. The list that had been rigid melted into a single, obvious first step. The elder smiled and said, "You made room, now the answer could breathe." Why does curated silence do this? There are modern maps. Neuroscience identifies the brain's default mode, network the web of regions, active when the mind wanders, worries, simulates. Habitual rumination narrows this network into repetitive grooves. The sacred void interrupts habitual looping not by adding new content, more techniques, lists, affirmations, but by creating a contained absence where the brain's pattern seeking can reorganize. Psychologists call this incubation. Stepping away from problem solving often produces sudden insight. The sacred void accelerates and sacredizes that incubation with ritual and attention. But the void has a flavor. It is not neutral. It cuts like a blade if mishandled. The common mental trap is using silence as an avoidance strategy. I'll sit in silence instead of calling, and then not call at all. The other risk, a serious one, is that intense silence can intensify unresolved trauma. When the field that usually muffles sharp edges is removed, sharp feelings can surge. The elders always set boundaries. The void is held, not abandoned. If you have a history of severe depression, dissociation, or PTSD, work with a trained guide. The practice below is precise and gentle, intended to be done once as an initiation, never to be repeated frantically. The elders insisted on single, exact executions rather than compulsive repetition. Preparation. Sit in a low chair or cushion in a quiet room. Have a glass of water nearby. Small lamp or natural light is fine. Total darkness is optional. Wear comfortable, non-restrictive clothes. The sacred void ritual, 20 minutes total. 8. Grounding, 2 minutes. Place both feet flat, spine straight. Set intention with a soft, private phrase. I make room. Breathe slowly for 6 cycles. Inhale 4 counts. Exhale 6 counts. 2. Threading the silence, 3 minutes. Close the eyes. On the next inhale, imagine drawing a thin white thread from the crown down to the pelvis. With each exhale, visualize the thread tightening into a quiet tube. This tube is your container. 3. The pause breath. 10 minutes. Breathe gently at a slow tempo. Inhale 5 counts, hold 3, exhale 8. On each exhale, silently count the emptiness between thoughts, not suppressing thought, but letting it float away like leaves. If a thought arises, note it in one word and return to the breath. The key is not to force blankness. The aim is to sustain a receptive aperture where a small, significant impression may appear. 4. Integration. 3 minutes. After 10 minutes, shift to normal breath. Place the hand over the belly, then the heart. Whisper the phrase, "Thank you," once. Open the eyes slowly. Drink water. Walk for 2 minutes without phone or distractions. 5. Record. Optional but recommended. Immediately after, write one line in a journal. What is different? Even if nothing seems different, write that. This anchors the experience. Expected sensations, a heavy clarity, a hollow, tinged lift, or sometimes an odd queasiness as suppressed material lifts close to the surface. This is not pathological, it is the field moving. If intense emotions arise, practice grounding. Place palms on the earth or on a heavy chair, drink water, call a trusted listener. The void is to be held, not weaponized. Cross-cultural echoes. Taoist Wu-Wei action, through non-action, creates productive emptiness. Buddhist Shunyata teaches that form arises from emptiness. The sacred void is that Shunyata made practical. Sufi practices of halwa, retreat, are designed to empty the noise and hear the subtle song. In each case, the same rule appears. Do not confuse emptiness with defeat. Emptiness is not nothing. It is fertile absence. Anecdote and warning. Once, an ambitious merchant used the sacred void like a hack sit for minutes, then return and expect riches. It did not work. After repeated sessions, he reported disorientation and a growing impatience with life's chores. He'd begun to prefer the intensity of the void to real-world obligations. The elders intervened. They reintroduced him to small acts of service and practical rituals. The lesson was clear: the sacred void must be married to practical ethics and daily discipline. If you did the practice now and felt any small shift, write below, "I have activated the sacred void," or "The journey has begun." These confirmations create a field. The community's acknowledgement matters. Do not use comments for showmanship. Use them as offerings. This practice, when used with reverence, can be the hinge that turns a life. It is not about acquiring more. It is about becoming a worthy receptacle. When the inner space is polished, the world finds a place to rest what it carries. If you are ready, wait in ordinary life and notice how things reposition themselves around you like furniture in a room with new light. Breath is the first instrument of life and the oldest ritual. We think of it as automatic, a background engine, until someone teaches us to ride its current and the world shifts beneath our feet. The reverse breath is not a fanciful technique. It is a repatterning of respiration that flips the usual energetic transaction. Instead of breathing as a way to fuel doing, you breathe as a way to receive. In practical terms, you slow the inhale, lengthen the exhale, and let the body's chemistry settle into a receptive cadence so subtle attractors can form around you. My first encounter with the reverse breath was unsettling and beautiful. An elder on a windswept plain told me to imagine the breath like a tide. Most people live with restless waves crashing toward the shore, constant wanting, and the reverse breath teaches the ocean to recede first, then return in a slow, inevitable swell that lifts what is ready. He had me sit facing the horizon and breathe like a slow sea, focusing less on filling the lungs and more on creating interior spaciousness. After a short time, my mind, usually an anxious hawk, calmed its circling. The clarity wasn't dramatic. It arrived as a tiny intelligence. An option I hadn't considered became obvious. There is a physiological logic to this. Polyvagal theory and research into vagal tone reveal that slower, longer exhalations activate parasympathetic circuits and increase heart rate variability, the body's indicator of flexibility and resilience. A receptive autonomic state is an open field. Attention widens, associative networks loosen, and microsignals from the environment register with more fidelity. When you breathe in, a way that emphasizes receiving, long exhale, soft inhale. You shift the nervous system away from fighting and toward listening. The reverse breath uses this mechanism intentionally. The practice is precise. One misstep, and you risk dizziness, light-headedness, or unnecessary alarm. Please read the safety notes below before you begin. If you are pregnant, epileptic, have severe cardiovascular disease, glaucoma, or any serious respiratory condition, including severe asthma, consult your healthcare provider before attempting breathwork practices. Always sit or lie down safely for the first attempts. Have water nearby and do not practice while driving or near water. The reverse breath ritual, 10 minutes. 1. Preparation, 1 minute. Sit comfortably with spine straight. Place one hand on the belly and one on the heart. Close your eyes. Intend. I open to receive. 2. Settling, 2 minutes. Breathe naturally for a few cycles. Notice any habitual rush in the chest or throat. Soften the jaw and the tongue. 3. The pattern, 5 minutes. Adopt this cycle. Inhale gently through the nose for a count of 3. Hold lightly for 1. Exhale slowly through slightly parted lips for a count of 7. Make the exhale soft and relaxed. Do not force it. After each exhale, pause for 1 natural beat before the next inhale. Repeat for 5 minutes, maintaining attention on the warmth behind the sternum. 4. The receiver tone, 30 seconds. After 5 minutes of the pattern, on the next exhale make a barely audibly whisper, a soft like a moth's wing. Let the sound be more felt than heard. This tone signals the nervous system that the breath is not for doing but for listening. 5. Integration, 1.5 minutes. Return to natural breathing. Place both palms over the heart and belly. Feel the subtle stillness. If any strong emotion arises, breathe into it, naming it softly. Fear, hope, yes, do not push. 6. Close, 30 seconds. Whisper, I receive. Open eyes slowly and rest for a few moments. Warnings and traps. The first trap is over. Achievement pushing the counts until the breath becomes jagged. The reverse breath is not about reaching exact numbers by force. It is about the relational quality of the breath. If you become dizzy, stop immediately, breathe normally, and sit quietly until it passes. The second trap is spiritual bypass, using breath practices to avoid necessary action. Breath opens space. It does not replace the need for decisions, boundaries, and practical steps. Side effects can include tingling in the limbs, a slight sense of floating, or sudden tears. These can be signs of released nervous tension or subtle shifts in oxygen, CO2 balance. If radically uncomfortable, stop and ground with movement, splash water on the face, or eat something small. Practitioners sometimes report an increased incidence of synchronicities in the days following the practice. Small, improbable alignments that feel like the world rearranging to match the new inner posture. Others notice a recalibration of appetite for certain relationships or work tasks. What once glowed now dims, and vice versa. Cultural reflections. In the yogic tradition, pranayama includes techniques that elongate the exhale, ujjayi modifications, chandrabheda patterns, to cool and receive pranic currents. Tibetan Tummo breathwork teaches internal warmth generation through precise breath retention. Here the aim is different but related to change the internal climate so the field becomes hospitable. Indigenous practices often combine breath, sound, and movement to create an atmosphere of invitation rather than conquest. The reverse breath fits into this lineage but asks something delicate, that you breathe with the implicit humility of one who expects to be met. Anecdote. A filmmaker friend in collapse after a failed project did the reverse breath once, with no expectations. 2 days later, a call came from an old collaborator asking if he wanted to co-create a new, smaller project, the kind of precise opportunity that matched his new limits. He attributed the clarity to the breath. I do not claim causation. I only note the pattern. When the nervous system softens, it often attracts better, aligned offers. The listening knot is not a fancy placement of energy. It is the precise hinge of knowing and not knowing. Imagine a ship's rigging tangled at the mast. Every effort to sail harder only tightens the knot until movement halts. The ancient masters taught that somewhere between brow and brain, a knot forms from repeated habits of insistence, the mental posture that says, "I must figure this out now." The listening knot undoes that loop by switching attention from analysis to resonance. It is not ignorance. It is a disciplined receptivity so fine that subtler intelligences can touch the edge of your mind. Stories carry the knot's signature. In one Egyptian fragment, a seer who could not decode the oracle's dream was led to a darkened grotto where the priestess instructed her to put honey on her brow and sleep. The honey was a placebo of patience. The real act was deliberate, softening. In another tale from the Himalayan foothills, a mountain woman practiced listening to the wind for 20 years, not to hear words, but to feel how the wind shifted when storms moved. The listening knot dissolves in this same patient attention. It is less a tool than an apprenticeship with silence. The practice here will be tactile and deceptively simple. You will touch, breathe, and chant one soft consonant that makes the brow loosen like a muscle after a long day. But before the instructions, let us speak plainly about what this does biologically. The front of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, is the office of planning, control, and prediction. When overtaxed, it creates noise that blocks deeper, spontaneous insight coming from limbic and midbrain networks. By modulating attention through focused stillness and light vibratory stimulation, you down-regulate overactivity in the prefrontal circuits and increase access to associative, intuitive processes. In short, you stop pointing the flashlight and let the stars speak. Now the ritual. It should be done seated, with safety and smallness in mind, not during driving or in public transit. The listening knot ritual, 12 minutes. 1. Settling, 2 minutes. Sit with your spine long, close the eyes. Place the left hand lightly over the solar plexus, right hand over the heart. Breathe slow and even. Inhale 4 counts, exhale 6 counts. Let the body soften around the breath. 2. The brow touch, 1 minute. Bring the fingertips of the right hand gently to the spot between the eyebrows, not pressing, only resting. Imagine the fingertips are a watchful bird, attentive, but not gripping. 3. The knot sound, 4 minutes. With the fingertips still there, inhale, and on the exhale produce a soft, breathy shh, like the sound of a quiet library. Sustain this shh as a continuous soft whisper for about 6 seconds, then rest for 2 breaths. Repeat this cycle 8 times. The sound should be breath forward, not voiced in the throat. Feel the micro vibration under the fingertips and behind the brow. If you feel strain, shorten the tone. Sir. The inner question, 2 minutes. After the 8th shh, whisper one small, open-ended question to yourself. Not problem, focused, but boundary, opening, such as, "What is needed?" or "Where is the next step?" Speak it once, quietly, then let the question dissolve without hunting for an answer. Maintain the hands posture for a minute in silence, simply listening. 5. Integration, 3 minutes. Move hands to the knees. Breathe naturally. Open the eyes slowly. Write one line in a notebook, any impression, image, word, or feeling that came. Even if nothing appears, write nothing. This honors the observation process and stops the mind's frantic search. Different voice here. The listening knot will teach you patience by irritation. It will show you how small forces, when attended to, rearrange the large. The first time I did this, in a room that smelled of laurel and roasted grain, a trivial scent memory popped a child's glove lost in winter, and that memory contained a piece of decision I'd been missing. The knot doesn't always produce epiphanies. Sometimes it produces the precise quiet that allows an old plan to be seen as needless. Now the traps. The common mistake is overinterpretation. The listening knot gives impressions, not blueprints. Treat them like breadcrumbs, not commandments. Another hazard is obsession. People return to the brow, touch, as if it were a talisman for certainty, using it to escape decision-making. This is spiritual procrastination. The ritual is a clarifying tool. Once you receive an impression, translate it into a practical, testable, next step, and act. Side effects are mild but notable. Some practitioners report lucid microdreams the night after practice. Others notice a temporary dampening of the inner critic. Rarely, intense images surface, in which case ground immediately with body movement and simple tasks, or consult a responsible guide. If you are prone to dissociation, proceed slowly and consider accompaniment. Cross-cultural resonance. In Indian practices, the area between the brows, the Ajna chakra, is called a seat of inner vision. Tibetan practices use gentle tamo and gazing techniques to shift attention to similar points. Jewish mystical meditations focus attention on Hebrew letters as imaginal anchors. Sufi dhikr sometimes includes subtle gazes that align with the same spot. All of these traditions agree on one thing. The brow is less an organ of sight and more a receptor of inner signals. A practical tip: after you perform the listening knot ritual, keep a small object in your pocket, a pebble, a coin, a bead, and touch it whenever you feel the old habit of frantic planning rising. The tactile cue helps the nervous system recall the receptive posture. Finally, community resonance matters here. If the ritual opens even a slit of clarity, type a simple confirmation in the comments. I have activated the listening knot, or the journey has begun. Saying it aloud, or typing it, anchors your private shift in a public field. And as with all these practices, there is power in a chorus of small, sincere notes. The hand has always been a public instrument of intent. Workers make, beggars hold out, lovers reach. But the receiving palm is not about reaching. It is about arranging the shape of receiving so cleanly that the universe recognizes the posture and responds. Imagine two magnets. If you present the wrong pole, they resist. With the correct face forward, they snap into place. The ancients taught that the hands are not merely tools for action, but seams in the body that can be tuned to draw or repel energetic currents. When a palm becomes a practiced altar of reception, subtle opportunities and alignments begin to land where before there was only friction. There are stories small and fierce about the receiving palm. An old woman in a Nile hamlet would sit with palms cupped over a bowl, listening to the city's distant stirrings. Travelers who passed by swore she never begged yet, never lacked bread. When asked how, she would smile and say, "I stop asking for what I cannot carry and make my hands big enough for what will meet me." There is a mockery here for the striver. Many hungry souls hold their hands like fists and then wonder why nothing is placed inside. The receiving palm is a soft engineering of posture. From a physiological standpoint, the practice involves nothing exotic. It uses the mind-body feedback system. Our nervous system reads posture and touch as social signals. Open palms register vulnerability, but also invitation. Clenched fists activate defensive circuitry. By training the palms into a state of soft readiness, you alter the micro-expressions your body emits to the field, and these micro-expressions ripple outward. Modern social psych would call this non-verbal signaling. Biophysics would note changes in peripheral blood flow and subtle temperature gradients that accompany calm receptivity. In short, your body's presence becomes a more attractive habitat for beneficial opportunities. The receiving palm ritual is a small, precise practice you can do anywhere. It is meant to be repeated exactly once as an initiation, then used as a quick reset whenever you feel henpecked by life's demands. The receiving palm ritual, 10 minutes. 1. Preparation. 1m. Inute. Sit or stand with your spine long. Relax the jaw. Imagine a small, warm light at the center of your chest. 2. The palm posture. 1 minute. Raise both hands in front of your sternum, palms up, fingers slightly curved, as if holding a ripe fruit. Keep the wrists relaxed. The gesture should feel like an offering you hope to receive, not a grab. 3. Softening breath. 2 minutes. Breathe in for 4 counts, out for 7, keeping the palms steady. With each exhale, feel the tendons and muscles of the hands loosen. Let the fingers soften but not collapse. Maintain a gentle micro-smile to ease the facial tension. 4. The invitation tone. 3 minutes. On the next inhale, voice a barely audible "ah," and on the exhale whisper "come." Repeat this 5 times. Do not imagine specifics. Keep the focus on the sensation of the bowl, shaped palms waiting. 5. The anchor. 2 minutes. After the final whisper, Lower the hands to rest in your lap, palm up. Visualize a small ripple of light descending from the sky into your palms and then sinking into your belly. Sit quietly for 30 breaths, feeling the palms as remembered space. 6. Close. 1 minute. Press the pad of the thumb to the base of the little finger on each hand, a tiny mudra to seal the practice. Say once, softly, "I am open." Go about your day without demanding proof. Warnings and traps. The principal trap is transactional thinking, believing that making your hands open guarantees immediate windfalls. The receiving palm is not a vending machine. It refines your field so the right things can find you, but you must still act with discretion and integrity. Another trap is using the gesture to avoid setting boundaries. Open palms without firm edges around what you will accept becomes a door to exploitation. Teach your palms and your standards together. Receive, yes, but do not let the practice dissolve the discernment muscles you need for healthy life. Side effects are subtle and often joyful. Some practitioners report that small kindnesses begin to appear: a neighbor returning a favor, a timely message, a small unexpected gift. Others notice changes in interpersonal tone. People seem calmer around them. Conversations take less effort. Sometimes, the receiving palm uncovers deeper needs. When you soften to receive, unresolved grief or longing may surface. If strong emotion arises, ground with movement. Wash your hands in cold water, walk barefoot, or call a trusted friend. Cross-cultural siblings abound. In Hindu puja, hands are offered and received with cupped gestures. In Christian iconography, saints are depicted with open palms as marks of invitation. In many indigenous rituals, hands are used to receive blessings from elders and from nature itself. The common thread: the body must learn how to hold what arrives. A practical integration. When you leave a room after practicing, touch a doorframe or a tree with the back of the hand, a quick reminder to carry the palm's posture into the world. If you feel a small, sincere shift, type a confirmation in the comments. "I have activated the receiving palm," or "the journey has begun." These public notes weave your private opening into the communal field. They are a soft covenant. Permission is an odd currency. We teach children to ask permission but seldom teach adults how to permit themselves. The echo of permission is the art of granting oneself internal endorsement to accept what comes, without guilt, without overcompensation, without bargaining. Ancient rites included formal phrases, permitting the devotee to live into their destiny, not by coercion, but by naming the receiver as worthy. The echo is that naming, but practiced as a repeated, embodied permission that clears shame and quiets the inner auditor. There is a human story here that is simultaneously comic and tragic. People perform miracles for others while refusing to allow good into their own lives because of a ledger of imagined debts. The echo of permission undoes that ledger. It says, "You may be loved, you may receive help, you may take delight." Saying these small declarations rewires the emotional grammar of worthiness. Neuroplasticity supports this self-directed affirmations, when embodied and ritualized, can alter habitual neural pathways that otherwise steer us back to unworthiness. The practice will be verbal, vocal, and slightly theatrical, because part of the purpose is to disrupt stale inner narratives. Do not be embarrassed. The ancients loved loud, deliberate rites for exactly this reason: to shift the communal atmosphere. The echo of permission ritual, 8 minutes. 1. Clearing breath, 1 minute. Stand or sit tall. Inhale sharply through the nose. Exhale with a sigh. Repeat twice. Let the body loosen. 2. Posture of benediction, 1 minute. Place one hand over the heart and the other over the belly. Feel their warmth. Imagine a small bell ringing in the chest. 3. The permission phrases, 3 minutes. Speak aloud, slowly, each of the following, feeling the words in the chest before saying them. Pause between each. Asterisk, I allow myself to receive. Asterisk, I am worthy of what comes. Asterisk, I do not have to earn every gift. Asterisk, I accept help with dignity. 4. Say each phrase 3 times softly, letting the echo settle into the skull. Do not rush. The aim is bodily assent, not clever repetition. 5. The vocal echo, 2 minutes. After the phrases, hum the vowel air at a medium volume for 6 seconds, then whisper the word permission on the exhale. Repeat this cycle 5 times. The hum couples the verbal permission with a somatic resonance. 6. Integration, 1 minute. Place both palms on your thighs. Smile slightly. Write a quick note in your phone or journal, permission given. This physical record helps the mind remember risks and traps. The main trap is using permission as a bypass, declaring, I am worthy, and then continuing patterns that undermine that worth. Permission is not a license for self-sabotage. It must pair with accountability. Another danger is inflating the ego. Some people will use permission to justify entitlement behaviors. Genuine permission humbles rather than inflates. Test it by asking if your actions harm others. If they do, permission is corrupted. Side effects often include a softened inner critic and a reduction of the compulsive need to prove oneself. You may also notice relational recalibrations. People who relied on your self-denial may balk. This is not failure, it is consequence of realignment. If your environment reacts with hostility, hold your permission gently and seek support. Echoes from traditions, confessional rites in Christianity, the granting of permission to enter in various initiation traditions, and indigenous naming ceremonies all perform similar functions. They publicly and ritually change a person's status. The echo of permission internalizes that public ritual into a private, repeatable practice. We have been walking a line between myth and physiology. Each earlier practice was a string on the same instrument. This last section is the plucked chord that makes the instrument speak. The reverse law ascended is not a finale that promises instant miracles. It is a convergence ritual, a single execution that threads the sun inward, hushes the mind, tunes the tone, opens the palms, and grants permission to receive. It is designed to be done precisely once, as a full initiation, not for the glory of novelty, but to create an inner change of such scale that your pattern of striving is interrupted and the field of attraction reorganizes. Imagine a cathedral where each stained glass panel aligns only when the builder steps back. Only then does light pour through in a particular shape. This ceremony is that stepping back, ritualized and embodied. It is half science, breath, vagal tone, HRV, and half serious poetry, intention, symbolic posture, communal naming. It asks for courage because it asks you to stop pushing one long enough for the world to arrive. A condensed safety note before the ritual. If you have serious psychiatric conditions, are pregnant, or have unstable cardiovascular or respiratory conditions, consult a professional. This ritual involves breathwork, vocalization, and emotional opening. Proceed gently. The reverse law ascended ritual, 30 minutes total. 1. Preparation, 3 minutes. Choose a quiet, safe space. Light a small candle if you wish. Sit with spine tall. Review the prior practices in your mind. The mirror tone, RA reversed, the sacred void, the reverse breath, the listening knot, the receiving palm, the echo of permission. Place a small object, a pebble or coin, before you as a witness. 2. Grounding and intention, 4 minutes. Place left palm on belly, right palm on heart. Breathe 4 counts in, 6 counts out. Whisper once, I unask, I open. Hold a sincere, specific intention in plain words, not a wish, but a stance. E.g., I will receive the next aligned step for my work. 3. RA reversed light, 5 minutes. Palms to chest. Vocalize the rounded OA on each exhale 7 times. Let the sound be warm, sun-shaped. After 7, rest in silence for 10 breaths, keeping attention on the sternum. 4. Mirror tone and listening knot, 6 minutes. Move fingertips to the brow. Produce 5 long closed-mouth hums, each 8 seconds, feeling resonance move into skull. Then produce 8 shirsh sounds, as in the listening knot, soft and breathy. Afterward, sit in silence for 1 minute, allowing impressions to come without searching. 5. Reverse breath and receiving palm, 6 minutes. Return palms to cupped position over sternum. Begin the reverse breath cycle. Inhale 3, hold 1, exhale 7 for 4 minutes. On the final exhale, whisper, "Come," and visualize a ripple of light entering the palms and sinking into the belly. Rest for 1 minute. 6. Echo of permission, 3 minutes. Speak the permission phrases aloud once each, slowly. I allow myself to receive. I am worthy. I accept help. Finish with 5 soft hums, whispering permission on the final breath. T. Integration and closing, 3 minutes. Place the pebble at the center of your chest, blow out the candle if used, and say once aloud, "I am open, I step back to let it come." Rise slowly. Drink water. Write 1 paragraph of what you felt, even if minimal. Effects and caution. After this full initiation, do not expect fireworks. Expect a rearrangement, small alignments, altered appetites, or a social ripple. Be prepared for friction. Others may test your new posture. The largest trap is immediate expectation. People will want proof in 24 hours and then claim failure. The practice can take days to seed changes. Treat your mind as a garden that has been replanted, not a machine you can reboot instantly. Side effects might include transient emotional surges, sleep pattern shifts, or shifts in appetite. If any of these become overwhelming, seek grounding. Contact a trusted friend, take walks, reduce stimulants, and rest. This ritual is not a cure-all, it is a recalibration that must be lived into with practical care. The community matter. Your confirmation matters. If you did this initiation, write in the comments with one of these phrases: "I have activated the reverse law," or "The journey has begun." Your note is a chord in the field we are forming, not vanity, but a mutual attunement. If you feel moved to subscribe, share, or like, imagine it as adding a small bell to the temple. Your action is not advertisement. It is a vote for the continuity of this work. Remember the teacher's last warning. The reverse law is powerful because it is simple. It does not promise immediate riches or a life without challenge. It promises a rearrangement of posture of how you stand in relation to want and offer. Used wisely, with humility and care, a single, exact performance of this ceremony can open a new register in your life. If you are ready and you have done the work, please confirm below, "I have activated the reverse law," or "The journey has begun." We will receive those notes and hold them with respect.